Good morning, everyone. Welcome to After Sea in America. I am your host, Don Irvine, joined by my co-host, Brian McNichol.
Hello, deplorables, dregs, despicables, chumps, Neanderthals, semi-fascists, maggots, weirdos, and of course those dog-faced pony soldiers.
All right, so we're back to Wednesday. We did a Thursday thing last week, so we're back on our normal schedule. So maybe some
It
of our
was a
fans,
ratings disaster.
yeah. We just went woo.
That's right. Can't have that. We're like CNN.
Oh yeah, that's good. I like that. All right, so there's obviously news. We'll spend quite a bit of time here, a little bit on what happened last night. But I think let's start off by the fact that this is one of those rare occasions where we can air the show on the anniversary.
Right.
This does make it quite a somber day in that effect. It's been 23 years since 9/11. I mean, it does seem like a long time ago, but yet it doesn't seem like a long time ago. I get concerned that uh, it's kind of being lost in our consciousness. That we're still seeing the ceremonies in New York, but I'm not sure as much emphasis is being put behind it. There's 23 years has elapsed. There's no doubt that the families still feel the pain each and every day of that horrific day, whether or not you were in New York at the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, or the Flight 93 thing, any of those types of things. I think you will definitely not forget. But we do have a generation of
Right.
people who don't know this, right?
Yeah. I mean, that, to my kids who are, 20 and almost 18, this is, it's like the Civil War. It's something that happened back in the midst of history before they were born. Right. I mean, they don't remember it. They weren't there, and it's like they're curious about it. They want to know about it and whatnot. And where does it fit in our history and so forth? But that's not a thing that didn't happen in their life, right? It happened completely before they were born by a few years, right? So, that's part of it. You have a lot of people now, and if you are, if you're younger than about 26 or 27, you probably don't remember where you were much of about what happened that day, right? So it's only grown-ups that we're talking to about this anymore. And I guess Biden is trying to hit all three of them today: New York, Shanksville, Pennsylvania, and the Pentagon, to memorialize it and so forth. So he is doing his part on that. So that was a day where, it's interesting. Like, it's where America's vulnerabilities were exposed in a way they'd never really been exposed before, right? Something happened. I mean, somebody pulled something over on us, right? And we weren't prepared for it. So, it made us, it got us into prepare mode. And now we're in, the situations where, we're kind of not prepared again. We're sort of gone back to fighting that same battle. They say 20 million people have crossed into the country illegally since Biden became president. We're not prepared for that. We don't know where to put them. You now have some of them ending up in Springfield, Ohio, stealing everybody's pets for supper and and whatnot. Right? I mean, there's some absurd stuff going on as a result of we're caught unprepared. We're not prepared to guard our border. We're not prepared to give any kind of scrutiny to the people who come in here. They're just coming in, and it's overrun, and there's nothing anybody can do about it. So it's sort of cycling back to where, like like you're saying, it's sort of drifting into memory to where the things that happened that day and the things that we did to, rise up against it. Like, Kamala Harris says that we should at least rethink, if not eliminate, ICE, right? ICE is a product of that, of trying to get control of the border and knowing who's coming in and out of the country and so forth. And she's like, that's not even the right approach. Why are we even worried about that? We just need to sign them up for free healthcare and whatnot. I mean, the whole way we look at all that has changed. Has gone, I guess you could say, backslidden in a way to what it was before that. There's another alarming thing coming. And we're what we need more prepared for it than we were then.
Let me ask you this. One of the things that came out of that too, I mean, basically you mentioned ICE, but I mean, the whole, creation of the Department of Homeland Security,
Right.
Now that we're, 20 plus years into this, has this been a good thing or,
Oh, well, I mean, I wouldn't say so. So, like, the first thing is I remember because I was at Heritage at the time, and they started talking about there were 88 congressional. I didn't know there were 88 congressional committees, but there were 88 congressional committees that had oversight over some piece of DHS because they just took offices out of other agencies. Some of this stuff was under Justice, some of it was under Treasury, some of it was under Commerce, and put all these things, just threw them into a department, anything that looked like it would have anything to do with protecting the homeland. And so now you have this big, unwieldy and unconnected, like everything at the agriculture department has something to do with agriculture, right? And it's nothing in there strays too far from the mission of agriculture. But this is, I mean, they're like, there's part of the Department of Homeland Security that is going out like doing media literacy programs, telling people how to inoculate themselves. And that's the exact word they use, inoculate their children against like conservative media, conservative ideas, right? And how to discredit those sources, create an official version of truth, punish anybody that goes against it. I mean, that's a long-term aim of the Department of Homeland Security. Okay, and this is, they're doing this all over the world. They're, financed a big program that involved a university in Germany that is known, that helped put together the EU and European Union's censorship regimen, right? So, at this point, you would have to say, Trump wants to end the Department of Education. That's a good first step. But this one, you'd have to figure out some of this stuff. You can't stop doing these functions, right? But, border control, I mean, that's probably a justice function, right? So maybe we split this stuff back up and we put it back where it's supposed to be.
Yeah, my feeling was just, I mean, like you said, I mean, they kind of took all these things and so it became this monolithic thing. This is exactly the opposite of what like Ronald Reagan would have wanted, right? Like this is, he's, trying, and of course conservatives are looking for small government.
Smaller and targeted, right? We got
right.
problem X. Let's do something that solves problem X, and that's it. And we don't want, something that could solve problem X and 1,000 other problems like it, right? Because that's, bracket keep and corporate capture and so forth.
Right. And so this is basically what we wound up with was this disjointed department of kind of an amalgamation of this, that, and the other. It's kind of throw a bunch of things into the pot and then see what happens. Call it Homeland Security and make people think that we are safer than we were before.
Right.
And, I mean, look, so we haven't had an attack, on our soil since then. But I think,
on that scale, I guess the people in Aurora, Colorado would say they are having that kind of attack, right?
Right. I mean, there are other things that can be labeled terrorist attacks, but to a very small scale. But we've done a better job in some cases of we've been able to prevent the mass, massive scale type of thing like that. But do you need a department, that is that large to do that? This is the problem with government. My father spent his career in the Federal Reserve, his first career. And that was one of his problems. I mean, so we're talking about the central bank. And, when he was eligible to retire, he took it and then went full time for Accuracy in Media. And he didn't regret it because those last few years, all he saw was the Federal Reserve getting bigger. They just kept hiring more people. Wasn't, just a lot more functions. I mean, how many times have we read stories just about these bureaucrats that sit around and really don't do a lot of anything, right? But you just build, and then then they get into that game of we now have to justify our budget, so we've got to do this, we got to do this. So we don't, we don't want to go backwards, all that kind of stuff. Because if you don't spend it all, you don't want to get a budget cut, all these games.
Like my story on this is like, well, I worked on Capitol Hill. Like they would come in 3 or 4 times a year, 2 or 3 times a year, and change my computer, give me a brand new modern computer. Now, I'm a writer, right? My job was to write and deal with the press, right? To coordinate reporters and whatnot. But I was the press guy of the committee, and I'm using my computer as a typewriter, right? I need to be able to look up things, and I need to be able to type stories, and this is the mid 2000s, so there was less to look up. It's not as vast as it is now. But 3 times a year, I got a brand new one, right? And why is that? Why did they give a guy who's using it as a typewriter and keep changing my computer, right? Is because one thing, they're trying to hack vulnerabilities, reduce hack vulnerabilities. But I mean, that's not the cheapest way to reduce hack vulnerability, right? But others, they had all this money to spend and they had to spend it. So, and you can't, if you don't spend it, then they say, oh, you spent 12% less last year. So, we'll cut your budget by 15%. What? A 15% budget cut? Well, yeah, don't give me 3 computers a year, right? I don't need them. But everybody's afraid to walk off that cliff and say, yeah, let's actually look at what we need and just get it. That's why I'm excited about Musk wanting to play a role in the Trump administration. Like, he fired 3/4 of his employees and his company got better. So 3/4 of them. So, I'm anxious to see like who we can do with that.
Yeah, so this is this is one of the problems with the government too, right? Is that they replace a lot of stuff, computers, furniture, all this stuff, and then they have a warehouse full of stuff that they now need to get rid of, which they have to, when they do get rid of a lot of it, it goes for pennies on the dollar. Things that were perfectly useful, that are but because of the strange machinations of the government, they wind up in this process. You and I, and everybody else out there pays for this.
Right.
We have paid for this time and time again. It's like we're paying for all this stuff that's unnecessary. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you on the Musk thing that, this is the kind of thing that we need going forward. Absolutely. But yeah, we have this. So, are we more secure than we were 23 years ago? I guess so. I mean, if we have
some vulnerabilities got close. I mean, to be fair,
some
some stuff got
right,
some good stuff happened.
everything, and but we wound up with all these measures, and I mean, TSA, still struggles. I mean, they still have massive problems at the airports with trying to figure out how to do this, that, and the other. I mean, and they keep introducing new equipment and all these kinds of things.
New rules, right?
Yeah,
they just own you.
rules.
Whatever they tell you to do, you just kind of got to do it. Where does that power come from?
Yeah. So when I show up to the airport, I mean, I paid for pre-check starting years ago and never looked back. And I know a lot more people have joined pre-check since then. And depending upon which airport you're in, pre-check can be pretty good, or it can be not really any better than anything else. Like, I think the first time I tried to go through pre-check at Dulles, I'm like, this is the pre-check line? It was super long. It's like, this is not solving any problem. I mean, it's like, so I don't have to take my laptop out and don't have to take a coat off or whatever. It's like, but I'm in a line that's equally as long as those guys. Am I really saving any time in the end? And now they've got, they're doing a lot of, where I guess they're introducing some new equipment where, you can kind of go through without having to use your ID. They're trying to improve that and everything else. I mean, if you've been through an airport lately, or, there more and more of the facial scanners that, go through. I'm still trying to figure out. See, so Maryland is one of the few states that allows you to carry your license in a digital Apple Wallet, right? So I've got my driver's license in my Apple wallet, but what I found, like I think I was at Reagan, where they accept that, it's just that there's a little bit of a catch to that. You can go into the pre-check line and just get your face scanned and go through, or you have to go to the special line where they use that, and it may or may not be open. to do the ID. And so the whole thing about where you take your phone and you're supposed to get through quicker kind of goes away when they don't staff it or they put you in the
Yeah.
special line. It's like, because they don't put the equipment at every single kiosk or whatever little station they have. So it's like, so what are we doing? It's still a little disjointed in that effect. And I know that these other technologies. I commented the other day on Facebook about how I just went through this exit arch at Sam's Club, right? And I was under the impression that the idea was that you're supposed to pass through this, and this is supposed to be what I think they call a frictionless transaction, right? You buy your stuff and you go through, and it basically is okaying what you purchase, and you don't have the person at there standing there with the scanner going, receipt scan product, look at it, you check out, and then you're fine and you can go. The woman over there said it sometimes works and sometimes doesn't work. And I'm like, well, how am I as a customer supposed to? I was, my wife and I were standing there, and the person in front of us went through, but the other woman, the employee, was dealing with a person full of stuff in her shopping cart. And I'm like, can I walk through? I don't know. There's really not any direction as to what this is supposed to be like. And then I thought later on when I got home, I thought, it's like, how does this technology actually work? If you've got a whole shopping cart full of stuff, how does it know you're walking out with the right stuff? How is it able to figure out what you've got there to verify that you've actually paid for everything in your cart? I mean, this is beyond your pay grade or my pay grade, because that's beyond the technology experience or expertise we have. But I thought, I don't know if this is quite the thing going on. But it just kind of reminds me of TSA trying to introduce this new technology, and they still have some bugs with it, and we're still the guinea pigs while they work this stuff out. They haven't quite perfected it, but they put it out there and they say, okay, here we go. This is what we're promising you. And then the first thing you know is like, oh, it's not working. Go back over there.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Right.
enough to make me want to pull my hair out with all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, I still, when it comes to 9/11 every year, I just continue to go back to my memory of being in the office, having the TV on like I did every morning on CNBC, and just watching this thing unfold, and the disbelief of the anchors on CNBC, the reports, and my disbelief of thinking like, what am I watching here? Especially when the second tower went down, it was like, this is one of those surreal moments. I cannot believe I am actually watching what I'm watching. The confusion. We had not seen anything like this in our
Right.
lifetime.
It was a
And
little
then,
scary. So I remember I was at Heritage, and we had a 9 o'clock meeting every morning, and I went in there a few minutes early, and the boss, he had a TV in his office, but he rarely had the TV on, was watching TV. And I'm like, what you watching? He said a plane crashed into the World Trade Center in New York. And I said, was it on purpose or an accident? And he goes, he's just about to say, I don't know, when the second plane hit. I said, 2 is not an accident. He said, you are right, fat Cajun. That's what he always called me. And
why don't you just go ahead and change your name to that on there?
Yeah, I think that's a great fat Cajun, but that's what he called it. So he wanted to make sure everyone felt loved. So we all had these ridiculous nicknames. But a few minutes later, the great Andrew Blasco, I don't know if you know him, but he's a great photographer and editor himself, came down the hall. And he's like, they've hit the Pentagon. You can see the smoke from my window. So we all run to his office and we look out craned our head out the windows and could see the Pentagon, could see the black smoke coming up out of the Pentagon. And, maybe 5 minutes later, we sat down for the meeting, and the meeting started, and he got a message saying, send everybody home. Right. Because, they told all the employers in DC to go home. Right. Or to send everybody home, because they didn't really know what else was going to happen. Right. Remember, there was a big fear that day that it would keep coming. There would be more planes and more attack. Right. They weren't done. And so I did. I left, and it's like the way home. At Heritage, you're up right by Union Station. So I go over there, and people were telling us that Union Station was closed, but I could see up there. I could see people go in and out of it. So I don't think it's closed. And so I kept walking. I was walking with Dana White, who went on to be not that Dana, not the wrestling Dana White, but the Dana White who was the spokeswoman of the Pentagon for about 3 or 4 years. And we were walking over there, and we had kind of these worried looks on her. And, I'm like, Dana, I think it's open, and we got to go, right? So we went over there, and I get on the train, and it was the most crowded subway car I have ever been in before or since. And I got, in order to make room for others, I was shoved into a seat, right? Like 2 or 3 people wedged me down into a seat. Okay. And then a guy, this guy's butt was right here. Right. So I'm glad he didn't have chili the day before or whatever. Like there was like 5 or 6 stops. There was a butt right in my face. And there was no moving. And the first, 3 or 4 stops, out of there from Union Station is, they're all DC stops, right? So nobody was really getting off at DC. So the pattern didn't change till we got headed out, into Virginia, and then you started to see some people get off. And then, I went golfing because I was like, the golf's on the edge of town. If they're going to do anything, they're going to do it down here. They're not going to bomb Leesburg, probably. Leesburg is safe, right? And that night we went back down there, and you could see the plane sticking out of the Pentagon, right? We went up in high above in Arlington. You could see down onto it. You could see them. It was still, smoke was still coming off of it, and people were working around there and trying to figure it out and so forth. And, I talk about that, and people, if I say that online, people will inevitably write in and say, where's your pictures? I'm like, well, I didn't take any pictures. So you didn't have pictures on your phone. Everybody didn't walk around with a camera then, right? This was 2001. So I don't have any pictures of it, but I mean, there were hundreds of people standing there on the hillside where I was watching it, right? Hundreds, literally hundreds of people. And then there were people all along, you could see down there, people all along the roads, like all the, not in the road, but like off the road on the grass above it and so forth, watching all this happen. So, and then there were, they reopened the road after a few hours. People were driving by looking at it. So there are tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of witnesses that the plane was sticking out of the Pentagon. But, if you say that, you put that online, you will get just absolutely bombarded by people saying it never happened. And they will send you this ridiculous artwork and stuff that people have done. And, I'm like, this is, a lot of, I get them. It's like, this is not a picture of the Pentagon, sir. This is not at all what this looks like. Well, this is what happened. Like, no, it's not what happened. So, and the like conspiracy theories that have grown up around this have been incredible. And but all that said, we still don't know, like, how did they get all this pulled off, right? There's still a lot about this we don't know.
Yeah, I do think, if there's a silver lining to any of this at all, it is just the recognition of first responders, because I think that, up until that time, America really hadn't paid much attention to our first responders. And now the first responders are getting a lot of credit for a lot of things that they do, on a regular basis. I mean,
yeah, I was thinking about that the other night. I was at a baseball game, and they, like, all the people who are military and first responders stand, and then you applaud for them. Yeah. And like the first time I was at a game and that happened, I thought, let's stand and I thought I heard, let's stand and applaud for the military, right? So I stand up, and my daughter's like, you weren't in the military. Everybody from 5 rows around. Stolen valor. Anyway, sit down. So now every time it goes to happen, they're like, stay seated, Dad. Don't get up. Man, you make one mistake around these people.
Yeah, but I'm glad that at least these people who, we know that we lost quite a number of them at 9/11, and other first responders have been. So, when we've lost, first responders in a lot of different situations, I know it's touched your life personally, and things like this in terms of what happens to first responders. They do put their lives on the line, and it's become something that we think about a lot more than we used to. and my son-in-law is a doctor. I mean, he's doing the pediatric, the podiatry stuff, but I don't think anything less of him that because he's still saving lives by doing the surgeries he's doing
Right.
because of the patients that he's seeing that could potentially die if he doesn't treat them because of their issues with their circulation issues and things like this. So there's lots of different levels of this, but first responders touch a lot of lives, and we haven't really thought about it a lot, I think, until then. So I think they've been they're now really recognized as the heroes that they should be, and so I'm glad that we've been able to give them credit for that. Yeah, I mean, my memory of watching TV. I mean, I was in the office early as usual. One of my other colleagues came in. He comes in relatively early, and we turned on the bigger TV and trying to sort this all out. And I think my father came in a little bit later, and finally, as other people trickled in, with everything else going on, we were able to make the decision saying, everybody just go home. We don't know what's going on here, but let's go home to someplace safe, and
Yeah.
let's
Go
try
find
to
your family.
go
Yeah.
back and try to figure this all out. And yeah, and as you said, taking, we didn't have the phones were not as ubiquitous as they are today.
Right.
That's still the early days of the internet, of cell phone technology, all these kinds of things. So we didn't have quite the same ability to do things that we do today. So I'm glad that we're relatively safe and sound. But I mean, it is still kind of like if you see something, say something. Don't there are people who do suspicious things, and they're still trying to do crazy things around the world, and then in smaller parts and other places in America. And it's like, got to keep an eye on them. I mean, but I don't know that we need this mammoth DHS,
Right.
apparatus as
That's
part of
right.
that whole thing. So anyway, another quick thing before we go to debate is that we did get CPI numbers this morning. It's getting a little bit closer to the Fed's target of 2%. But once again, what we get out of the media is inflation is cooling. Well, the rate of inflation is slowing down. The inflation is still there, even at 2.5% on the
Yeah.
CPI.
Still twice what it was when Trump left office.
It's still higher than what it was when Trump left office, and we still have higher prices of the basics that people need, things that
Right.
are that have made things a lot of basics very unaffordable. Grocery bills, have shot through the roof for most Americans. That is a fact that cannot be denied. But
Right.
but
Household income up before the pandemic more than $7,000 under Trump. Ended up being about 5,500, down more than 1,000 under Biden. We Americans have more than $1,000 less per family per household to deal with now under Biden than they did under Trump.
yeah, so I think I guess we're seeing signs of some things that to say the economy's slowing down, with uh, unemployment, kind of, ticking upwards a little bit. It's, so
Right.
we're,
And the other thing about the jobs report, almost all those jobs are going to foreign-born people. American-born people have fewer jobs. It's actually going down. Also, manufacturing jobs are going down. Full-time jobs are going down. Part-time going up. So, the labor market is really tough, and it's really not a lot of wage growth and so forth at all, right? We're not doing good economically right now. We're not.
yeah,
There's been points in the Biden administration where we've been doing even worse, but it's wrong to say that we're doing good at this point.
the pandemic effect with all that money that just got flushed into the system from the government, that's worn off now. And so now we're kind of seeing the real economy
The real
starting
results of their policies, and it's
right.
not a pretty picture.
Right. Okay. So there was a debate last night, lasted for, I guess, roughly 90 minutes, thereabouts. The media has done everything they can to trip over themselves, to declare Harris as the outright winner, and how Trump,
Right.
lost badly. Now, maybe Lindsey Graham fell into this trap because he called it a disaster, but I've been going over stuff and I'm like, no, I mean, look, maybe Trump didn't do as well as he did against Biden. I mean, we're talking about a different opponent here. Things are very different, but I don't think it was a disaster. I mean, I think Trump did, he probably did some things he probably shouldn't have done, but overall, I don't think this really moves the needle to Harris, for the
Right, and
election.
it'll be a day or so, it may, but not beyond that. For the following reasons. For one, I think that the story, as we just disappears into the ether, right, is the moderators, right? That was a joke, right? They didn't really mean that, right? Who repeatedly fact checked Trump with false things, right? The fact checkers told lies. For instance, Trump was talking about late term abortions, and David Muir said they weren't legal anywhere in the country. Harris's running mate signed legislation making them legal in Minnesota. Right? He's not only wrong, but it's wrong. On that ticket is responsible for it. Right? He the questions were designed to make him look bad and her look good. She got softballs. Why are you so wonderful? He got, do you have any regrets about January 6th? Relitigated things. They attempted to fact check what he said, but she did the Charlottesville hoax, the bloodbath hoax, the said he was for a national abortion ban, said he was against IVF, all things that said he was for Project 25, all these things. Trump said, that's not what I'm for. She's like, that's what he's for, right? And there's no attempt to correct her ever on any point that she made. No attempt to redirect her, force her to answer the questions, or whatnot. It was as one-sided and ganging up on Trump as they could possibly make it. So I think what people will remember is this was a debate. However you think, if you think Biden won, Harris won, okay, that's fine. But you have to admit that it was moderated in a way that she wasn't going to get allowed to fail. The other thing is so as this unspools, as we go down the road here, we go, what did you say? I saw on the thing 50 something days till the election now.
Before
54 days, the election. What's going to get litigated is the lies, right? She wants to do it again. So he gets up there, and just go through, you said this was a lie. You changed your position on this. You said you didn't change your position. She also lied about, fracking. She said, I've been changed on that since before 2020. No, she hasn't, right? And if you go watch the tape that they offer as evidence that she has, she said, Joe Biden will not let fracking happen. And she says it like 4 times, and she says Joe Biden every time. In other words, this is Joe doing this, not me. Also, it will be interesting to see how her Israel remarks play with her own people, because she attempted to be Israel's buddy last night when I think everyone knows the truth. Trump called her out on that. So I think as this goes on, and people like you said, as people actually think about what got said, he's going to look better and better, right? Because they threw a lot of crap, for lack of a better word, at him, and he responded to all of it. He took all of it and had something to say about it that when they go fact check it, they're not going to be able to prove that he was wrong.
Yeah, I mean, at least he was willing to answer the questions. He may have overdone it in some cases, but he was willing to do this.
He also missed some openings.
Right.
That can't, there was some, all you got to say is this one line and she is crushed, and he didn't say the line.
Yeah.
So, I think if they do it again, and now I understand now that she wants to do another debate suddenly because she thinks she did really well last night. Then, Trump's got to prepare, right? He's never, not once, but in all the debates he's been in, seriously prepared, right? Seriously got, down when they say this, you say that, right? In the way that all other candidates do. He has winged every single debate since he's been in politics, and it's been just fine. And you want Trump, Trump's instincts at work, right? You don't want to totally, saddle him with a script he has to read from. But, you got to be ready when she says things to put that hammer down, to drop the factoid that she cannot deny that totally destroys her point.
Yeah, she came away as a very rehearsed person, and that
Right.
you
There's a
can't,
lot of evidence she had the questions in advance.
right. It's kind of like, she was very well scripted on this, and she wasn't going to be knocked off of that. She gets a question that she didn't want to answer. She pivoted to something else completely different,
And
and
never brought up, hey, you didn't answer our questions.
the
Never.
moderators, right? The moderators did not return to that at all. I mean, Dana Bash did a better job,
Exactly. She sure
right,
did.
than these two. And you have, like, David Muir. I mean, on the January 6th thing, when talking about that, where Trump said it was sarcasm, and then Muir commented he didn't take that as sarcasm. Well, wait a minute. Now that is your personal commentary.
Yeah. Who cares what you took it as?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You asked the question, he gave the answer. Right.
Yeah.
Your personal impression is zero important here tonight, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah. That is not what you're not supposed to go back and say, well, I didn't think it was sarcasm. Wrong. That is not your role to play. You are a moderator here, moderating a debate. You ask a question, you get an answer, and you may follow up with something else, but you continue to ask the questions. You do not comment on the answers like that. And as you said, the fact checking was just unreal in that sense of, they want to call Trump out on the carpet for things, but they just let anything that Harris do, fly by. So I think that's another way of exposing, how bad things are. I mean, there is that thing too, where you have, the Dana Walden, who runs ABC News. I mean, she's a friend of Harris, right? She introduced
her to her husband.
Right, introduced her to her husband. So, I mean, I don't want to get into a lot of potential conspiracy things, but they just didn't do a very good job. And I do think a lot of Americans, felt that this was not a fair and even debate. I mean, I think we've already seen the memes of 3 against 1 kind of thing like that.
Right.
And that's really not that far off in the sense of the way that went. So, Trump's performance, it was okay. It wasn't, Harris was trying to stay on message for her. So, and the strongest thing that she really has going for her, is abortion, in the sense of this is an issue she's been pounding. And this is one where Trump has kind of left people confused as to whether or not the Republican Party is a pro-life party.
Right. And where did that question come in the order of questions? Where did it come?
Yes, right at the get-go. Set the tone right there.
First 10 minutes of the thing was, the issue that she had, that she was running.
Yeah. So you lead with that. And why did you lead with that? So you have all of these things that happen. I think, I know Trump went on Fox News, and they had talked about having, Brett Baer and Martha McCallum maybe do the next one. And, Trump's like, I don't want those two. I want Sean and Jesse to do it, because they were fantastic. So he wants it, but there's no way Harris would agree to a debate with people that that they feel would be kind of the opposite of what Muir and Lindsey Davis were, right? I mean,
right.
They would see those, and yet I think, frankly, I do think that Baer and and McCallum would be a little less partisan, in a sense.
Baer's hostile to Trump. He would be considered a hostile witness.
Right. I mean, it wouldn't be like, Harris is facing a hostile, moderators at that point. So
she will never see a moderator do to her what David Muir tried to do to Trump last night. It'll never happen. Right. And she will not. And a lot of the criticism now, another thing going on the Republican side, there's a lot of people out there, Chris LaCivita and Susie Wild's got to go for letting Trump get into this. And I think that's short-sighted. I think, for one thing, I think they're doing a better job than any of Trump's campaign teams have ever done. And for another, it's not bad that this happens to Trump, right? Because what happened is, she told a bunch of lies, right? they didn't fact check it. So now what you have today is a raft of stories saying, look at all the lies they did not fact check. Clearly stated, she said this. Here's the proof that she's wrong, right? You don't get to litigate that in a debate. Just say, oh, that's a lie. And then people are like, well, either you're lying or her lying. How do we know, right? But it will get litigated, scientifically, specifically, right? And the mistakes will be pointed out with specificity going down the line because, this was allowed to happen, right? And this will be viewed as something that, a wrong to Trump that needs to be ameliorated.
Yeah. Yeah. So, that's the thing too. And I mean, for Harris, I would have thought the goal here, well, one, obviously, with any candidate, is not to make any major flubs. But the other thing is that, she's trying, this is a tight race. She's trying to convince these voters that, that they should vote for her. And this is why, and the reasons why.
Right.
And I don't think that anybody learned anything more about her on the policy positions because she ducked. She basically avoided the questions, or she lied about things like fracking. So it's like, why are you saying you're now for fracking when it's obviously you've been for that you wanted it banned before. This is obviously something that you're doing now to pander for votes, particularly in Pennsylvania. So what's going on here? Who are you? No real clear message on the economy. I think Trump could have hit her harder on inflation, on the economy, things where they're going, because
run spot run was great.
Well, I did think too that when Trump pulled the whole Harris thing versus when Harris did that thing during the Pence debate, vice president, excuse me, I'm talking, kind of thing like that. I'm like,
he got her twice.
I thought, I said, hey, now that's good because you're doing it. And then you get this split screen where Harris is like,
right. Yeah. So you know what? I read a lot of stuff, even from people who favored her, who said, the facial expressions, that was bad. You got to learn to be, someone even wrote me and said, Trump has the same expression, the whole thing. I'm like, that's what you're supposed to do. I'm just hearing facts and I'm just hearing stuff and giving responses, right? She's like, she was about to cry half the time, right? She was so sad he was saying these things about her, and she was outraged. You could see the rage going in her eyes, right? That's not what you want in a president. You think Putin, like, he knows what to do with that. He'll make an idiot out of you like that.
Yeah, you could probably nod or shake your head at things, but the facial expression itself, don't give that away. It's like, don't start doing that, because it's like, then you kind of know what's going on here. To me, that doesn't really work. That's not a presidential thing to do, is to be the person that's scowling or trying to laugh at the other candidate or whatever. And then just anything that looks like a fake smile, like, I want to look pretty for the camera. Let me give you that little.
Is he really saying that?
Yeah.
And it's like, so a lot of those times she was doing that too. Trump was talking about suffering, of real suffering in America. So a lot of people are like, man, she's laughing at my suffering. I'm more like, what are you going to do about guns and babies and the economy and so forth? But a lot of people they're about the facial expression. She turned off a lot of people.
Yeah, and then the thing about Israel too is just that, I don't think that Harris necessarily hates Israel, but the fact that what she is pushing for is not a pro-Israel policy, and at least not one for Israel's best interest. And so that's the problem, is that this anything like a two-state solution, any of these other things that they're being thrown out there.
Right. That was one where, come out and say, Palestinians will never accept a two-state solution. Yeah. Right. You can say it's the Jews who won't accept it. It's not the Jews. The Jews have offered it since, Oslo, right? 1969, right? They said they would do that. And the Palestinians is who says no to the two-state solution. And now you're in a position where that's not practical. I think you and me will both be laying under the daisies before anything of that nature happens.
Yeah, I am going to request that there be daisies over my grave.
Yeah, me too. Hear that, family?
Yeah, and I'll do what I can to see if I can't push them up, or
yeah, there you go.
But who knows? Anyway, so they're just strange things we get into. So as we move on along this, and this is still kind of related anyway. Um, there was that interview with Pelosi where she said that Harris won the nomination in an open process. I'm like, once again, it's like, what the heck is going on,
Yeah.
Nancy Pelosi?
Why do you think we believe that? The other thing, that just remind me of something though. Trump got to litigate the point about the security on January 6th in a way he never has before. The other thing is, along those lines. So MRC had a study last week where they said, they asked Biden voters and independents who voted, but Democrats and independents who voted for Biden in 2020. And they're like, they ran like 10 of her most radical, health care for illegal aliens, all this kind of stuff, policies at her, defund the police, so forth, and said, did you know that she's for this? And the people, like 75% or more, said no. They all the 10 policies. I think the lowest one was like 71 or 72%, right? All the rest of them were over 75% of the people who were Biden voters in 2020 who did not know she was for all this stuff, right? And the reason they don't know is because they watch legacy media, and legacy media has spent zero time. David Muir and his network have spent zero time covering this. They don't talk about it at all. I mean, 0 minutes. So, what happened is, when you think about like what all Trump did last night, like part of it is debating and arguing points and so forth, but part of it is, serving as a newspaper to those people and bringing them up to date on the vast amount of really meaningful news that they have no idea about.
Yeah, that's the thing. And so hats off to MRC. What are you guys at Accuracy in Media doing these days? Spending a lot of time going around with little trucks with little ads to, poke the bear on college campuses, and then talking to students and others about anti-Semitism, which is fine, but your name is Accuracy in Media.
Yeah. Right.
So MRC is now the king of the hill by far, for sure.
Yeah, they really are.
Hats off to them, and I just shake my head at what's
didn't have to be that way.
Yeah, no, it didn't have to be that way. It's just that's the way things have turned out, unfortunately.
Yeah, they do a good job. To their credit, there's a lot of people there and smart people that know how to go after the media.
Yeah, that's good. So I was just doing, one of the things I've gotten to be paying a lot of attention to this election cycle is Polymarket. So yesterday when I started putting the notes together, it was like before the debate, it was like Trump 53-46 over Harris. Then this morning when I came on, it was 49-49 after the debate. Then it became 50-49 Harris. And I decided let me just check now. So, we're doing real time for you people. So now it's 50-49 Trump. So, once again, this effect, if any of this is, on the Polymarket, if this has anything to do with the debate, you saw kind of all this media noise, maybe influencing Polymarket, shifting favorability in the race towards Harris. And now it's going back again, swinging back the other way again, as people kind of get through all the smoke and say, oh, wait a minute here. This is not what we were told, right?
Right. And the other, one of the things, the biggest, highlights of it to me, that they kept coming through to me, is that one of these candidates is in touch with what's going on in the country outside of Washington, and it ain't Kamala Harris.
Yeah, I don't know. She continues to try to be that person that reaches out and does things.
And I think her, the other one, the opportunity Trump needs to cash in on is, right. She has this line. She says, I was an attorney, I was a prosecutor in San Francisco. I was attorney general of California. I was a senator. Judiciary Committee, my client has always been the people, right? And he should say, yeah, you don't know anything about the rest of the world. All you've ever done is work for government, right? Like, I've run businesses, I've met payrolls, I know what it's like to not have enough money and have to make tough decisions. You just got a check from government your whole life. You're trying to set down business policy on people. You have no idea, right? But they're going to have to convince Trump. He's going to get one more shot because for some reason she's asking for another debate, and he's going to have to do the right thing. He's going to have to get ready for it.
I think, yeah, I mean, I know, like I said, I mean, I said earlier that he seemed to waffle, not really commit to a second debate, but I think his advisors should tell him to go ahead and do that, because you've now seen what she's going to do in a debate.
Right.
So now you have a better idea. I mean, part of the thing too is just that she hasn't faced the press for what, 52 days, of not a formal press conference. So, now you have a chance. You can see how she's avoiding the questions and doing these things, and you can say, all right, do one more final debate before election day, and then you really can go after her, pound her. Go ahead and make sure
Right.
she doesn't get away with the avoidance strategy. Make sure she doesn't get away with any outright lies, and things like that. So I would like to see another debate. Now, I will also say at the same point in time, because of now that we're entering, early voting stages and things like that, it's questionable as to exactly how much of this will move the needle. But there are probably still some people on the sidelines that are waiting to see how this is. If they know there's another debate, they might just hold their ballot back, waiting to see, one more shot to see about that. I think, in the end, I mean, I think the Harris people were very pleased with her performance last night. And I think the Trump people, by and large, if they sit back and look at that, they should say he did okay. He was fine.
Yeah, he did okay.
He wasn't facing an enfeebled president of the United States. He was facing a very well scripted vice president who tried to stay on message, and so didn't have these law thoughts, kind of a thing like that.
Right.
She could. So I think another debate would definitely favor Trump, and that would be a trap for the Harris people.
Right. The other, they may now get the temptation to do some interviews, right? Well, she wasn't so bad.
Yeah. This may give
know?
them. They may become overconfident about her ability, and
asking for another debate last night was them becoming overconfident.
Yeah,
right?
So that could. Yeah, you may wind up getting this overconfident, and that could wind up really being your undoing at that point in time, because I mean, even the Dana Bash interview, it wasn't that great. I mean,
well, I mean, you can tell by the way Dana Bash was asking the questions. And by the end of it, she was like, "This is painful. Can I make this?"
Yeah, I mean,
that's
not the way she wanted it to go. But Harris was not good. So so this we have enough, evidence that putting Harrison into an interview situation or getting tough questions is not a good thing for her at all.
Right.
Also, and that right after the debate, how much more carefully scripted can you be than to get Taylor Swift to announce that she's voting for Harris? It's like, okay.
Well, to me, I kind of look at it the way he sort of buried that. That's not a big story. That would have been a big story next week, right? Right now, it's something that happened after the debate.
Yeah, but look at the media reaction to this. It's been, it's like, oh, and this has been huge. The Democrats are like, this is a huge endorsement. It's like, you understand that these celebrity endorsements basically do nothing. That the most of the fans of Tay Tay don't really care. A lot of them can't even vote.
Right.
There are Republicans out there, and they're still going to vote for Trump. Her endorsement of Harris is not going to take a Trump voter and move her into the Harris camp. Those things are already baked in. These kind of endorsements don't do a lot, but the effect was that the media have jumped on this last night and this morning because she has 283 million followers, right? So they think, look, 283 million followers, this is a big deal. I'm like, look at history. this does not make a difference. So
Right.
let's
And who was surprised that, what was she going to do? Right. I mean, it's not really,
it's
sun
the way,
came up. It's not a
and the
big
way
headline.
she phrased it, kind of like, she kind of studied, watched the debate and made this decision. It's like, no, I don't.
You
Do
didn't,
you or I
you
believe?
probably didn't watch the
Does
debate.
anybody believe that Taylor Swift spent 90 minutes watching that debate and then made her decision?
Yeah.
Give me a break.
Yeah.
That did not
Yeah.
happen.
Not very many people watched that debate and said, okay, now I'm going to vote for Harris. Right.
Yeah.
You could probably count them on two hands.
Yeah. I mean, like, oh, yeah. So was Taylor sitting down with Travis Kelce watching the debate? I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think that was happening. All right. Let's just talk real briefly, talk for about a minute here or so about Elon Musk. We mentioned it before. This I thought was amazing, this whole Elon Musk thing, where Trump wants to put him in charge of this commission for government efficiency. Kind of reminds me of the Grace Commission, right?
Yeah.
Which had a gazillion.
There was a Gore. It was one that Gore worked on. It was actually not. They did some decent stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think now if they could actually have some influence and get something done, that'd be great. But Musk is such a different individual compared to the others that have tried to do these commissions in the past. He has influence. I think he has real life influence. I mean, Taylor Swift has got influence about clothing styles and music, but Elon Musk can have influence on policy. I think he can.
He already does.
He does. So this could be fascinating. I mean, I think I know there'll be a lot of people who are upset with the fact that he's tied to Trump, but this kind of thing, I think is just really important to see that that's what Trump wants to do, and that we're going to get serious about government efficiency and government spending and everything like that. All the nonsense.
It reminds me of so when he was starting the Boring Company, right? He called people who were in that business, and he said, "Is your problem the weight or the heat?" And they're like, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "That's when I knew I was going to make a lot of money in this business." Right? They don't even understand what's hard about digging tunnels, right? They don't even understand the forces that are working against them. And he's like come up with his own equipment, and he's more efficient than anybody and can do it for cheaper. And he'll soon own that industry because, it's only, your only limitation now is his waiting list, right? He can only do so many because he only has so much of the equipment. But, because his thing is better, because he was asking questions that the people who've been running these companies for decades did not even know to ask.
Okay, 1 minute to go or so. Take us out.
What do we? Oh, well, there goes my list. Let's see what was on the list. The Don list. The thing has been interesting about the the states that are trying to desperately to keep RFK on the ballot in the name of democracy after he wants off. Let's see, the X ban in Brazil. That ought to be a debate question, right? What would you do? What are you going to do about that? Do you just let things get banned? I mean, is there no consequence for that at all? What did you think of the NFL going down there, the day after it happened? Basically, James Earl Jones, obviously a memorable performer, has left us. And yes, there's a hurricane coming today. Cat 1, maybe Cat 2, maybe even Cat 3 by the time it hits, picking up some energy down there. Going to hit around Morgan City, Louisiana, which is sort of in the heel, just below the heel of the boot.
All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed it. Please, as always, stay safe and stay well. Remember, we live in the greatest country in the world. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise, especially today. A great day to remember those that we lost on this tragic day. And as always, God bless America, and we will see you again next week.